Great. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's webinar. I hope you're as excited as I am. We are going to be talking about ethics and specifically relating it to the UAE. And we want to get the perspective of the next generation, and the next generation of behavior analysts are, of course, our students. Okay. So just a little bit about who I am and why we're doing this and who's offering this event. My name is Dr. Michelle Kelly. I'm a BCBA-D. I'm an associate professor at the Emirates College for Advanced Education, which is based here in Khalifa City in Abu Dhabi in the UAE. And the ECAE is currently the only institution in the whole of the UAE that offers a verified course sequence. So we actually offer 2 VCSs. So we offer a 1-year postgraduate diploma in ABA, so a postgraduate diploma, and then we also offer a 2-year Master of Education in ABA. And both of these courses are delivered in English, and I am the program coordinator for these verified course sequences. We are also currently in the process of proposing a 4-year Doctor of Philosophy in ABA, so a PhD in ABA. And it's my understanding, I believe, that this will be the first PhD in ABA to be offered in the GCC. So I would just like to thank, we currently have, the numbers are rising as we go. So we have over 80 attendees so far. So thank you to each of you for attending. What you will notice is that you are automatically muted as you enter this event. So that is just a feature of the WebEx event platform. So you are automatically muted. If there's at any point that you feel you would want to share, please write in the chat and I can unmute you. However, we do have the chat function. So hopefully you can all see that chat function there that you can see. It should be on the right-hand side of your screen, where you can write to me and you can write to the panelists. When you do write in this chat function, only the panelists can see it. So the attendees are not able to see the chat function. There's also a Q&A. So if you have any questions throughout the session, please feel free to write any question and we will try our best to address it. During the session, we're also going to do some polls to try and get some active attendee engagement. So right now, what I would like to do, if it's okay, I would like to just start a poll. So you should be able to see this poll now. And the question is, can you use this poll? Yes or no? So if you can all, it should have popped up for you. Over 20 people have already answered it. So this is great. These polls will automatically close after 5 minutes, but I may stop them earlier. So it looks like everyone is getting the hang of this poll. So I'm just going to close this one. So don't worry if you haven't answered right now. So I'm just going to close that. And so 66 of you indicated that you can use this poll. So that's great. So as we go through, I'll be polling different questions. And inshallah, I'll be able to figure out how to share those results with you. So this will be some nice feedback for us in terms of getting you involved. And please don't be shy. Please, write comments, write questions in the chat. I will do my best to try to get to everyone's comments and questions if I can. Okay. I just want to tell you, and really I'm kind of showing off how active our students are. We're very, very lucky with our Masters of Education and ABA students at ECAE, at Emirates College for Advanced Education. They've been really, this is the first year of the course. They're our first ever cohort of graduate students in ABA, and they've been super, super busy this year. So just to give you an idea of some of the things that they've been busy doing this year, a couple of our students participated in ECAE's ISMEA, a measurement and assessment conference, where they spoke about evidence-based strategies in a roundtable discussion. I also volunteered with a project that we run every year in collaboration with Special Olympics, which is a young performers workshop series. So they were really actively involved in that, which was fantastic. They were also invited to present about ABA in Arabic at the annual Autism Education Conference in NYU. Due to COVID-19, this has been postponed, but they will be presenting at it once it is rescheduled. And also one of our students also presented about an ABA topic in Arabic at our annual Autism Day in April. So they've been very, very busy on top of working, on top of a busy family life, on top of studying. So I really, really appreciate our first cohort. And without further ado, I would like to introduce them. So ladies, just be sure to unmute your mics before you introduce yourselves. So tonight we have 6 panelists from ECAE. We have 4 from our Ajman campus, and we have 2 students from our Abu Dhabi campus this evening. So let me first introduce Aliazia.
Hello everyone, my name is Aliazia, and before everyone jumping and say what her name meaning, it's a type of extinct deer. So, and moving now to my educational background, I get a bachelor degree in social work. So I feel I missed out some important information about how to deal with other people's behavior. So I decided to complete my master degree in applied behavior analysis so I can be like a full option person. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Aliazia. Fatima?
Good evening, everyone. Unlike Aliazia, I have a very common name. My name is Fatima Abdallah. I have a bachelor's degree in primary education. Actually, I'm a person who likes to cause a positive change in people's lives. So master's in applied behavior analysis is the best choice for me to learn how to cause this effect in their lives. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Fatima. Our next panelist is Amal.
Thank you, Dr. Michelle. It's a great honor and pleasure to be here today. Well, about my educational background, it's varied. It's from health science to counseling, and now currently I'm doing my master in ABA. I have 5 boys, and I'm aiming to also implement the ABA with them. Also, I'm working in Ministry of Education, so I'm looking forward to implement the master degree, inshallah, and applied behavior in educational system-wide. Thank you.
Mashallah, 5 boys, mashallah, mashallah. Thank you, Amal. And Mariam?
Hi, everybody. I am Mariam Saadi. I got my bachelor's degree in primary education. This major focuses on understanding the needs of children and how can their teachers provide for them what they actually need. Therefore, I chose to deepen an ABA major as it is an integration with what I studied before, as it helps in benefiting from understanding these needs in a way to develop their quality of life.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mariam. And now the 2 panelists that we have this evening from our Abu Dhabi campus. So, Amina?
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. I'm Amina, and my background is in behavioral science, psychology. My daughter, Mariam, is actually a person of determination. She has a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. And to be honest, I think that I was using ABA long before I knew what ABA meant.
Great. Thank you, Amina. And finally, Moza.
Hi everyone, I'm Moza Al-Marzuki. I'm happy to have this chance too. I had the Bachelor of Education with the concentration of ABA. Then I thought that I'm really interested in applied behavior analysis and passionate about it. Therefore, I decided to complete my study to get the Masters of ABA.
Fantastic. Thank you all for your introductions. So we've already had a question, and I would just like to say we have nearly 95 attendees so far. So that's absolutely great. So really a warm welcome to each of you. I've had a question from an RBT who's asking about the verification codes. The verification codes are just for BCABAs, BCBAs, and BCBA-Ds. So RBTs, you don't need to note down those verification codes, but thank you for that question. Now, so before we get down to the questions, and of course, I know you don't want to be listening to me speak, you want to hear from our great panelists, but just to kind of put a base, a foundation about what we're talking about this evening. And I took this quote from our white book, Cooper, Heron and Heward, the 3rd edition, which was just published in 2020. And this is a direct quote that says, rules of ethics describe the personal individuals, not vague inherent traits or characteristics of individuals. One should not refer to a person or an organization as being ethical or unethical. These terms describe the behavior of an individual. So I think that's worth bearing in mind, that we don't talk about an ethical, like an unethical center or an ethical person. You know, you can be an ethical person but still make unethical choices, and it's similar to how, you know, we wouldn't label a child as being a naughty child. All children make, you know, not so great decisions every now and then, but again, we refer specifically to the behaviors rather than the entity. So again, tonight we'll be talking about ethical and unethical choices, decisions, behaviors. Now, in terms of the question, what is ethics? Behavior analysts who are on here tonight, you'll be very familiar with these 3 questions, in terms of these 3 fundamental questions that when we are faced with a decision to make, a dilemma perhaps, that the 3 questions that we are guided to ask ourselves is, what is the right thing to do? What is worth doing? And what does it mean to be a good behavior analyst? But for tonight's session, we want to go further. So tonight, we're going to talk about many different things. We're going to talk about approaches to ethics, core ethical principles, the rights of students in the UAE. We're going to talk about different dilemmas. And also we're going to get, well, not we, the panelists are going to give you some really practical recommendations and guidelines for how we can best adhere to our ethics code by the BACB. So I'm really hoping that let me check how many we have, our 95 attendees leave here tonight with some real take-home messages and guidelines and recommendations that you can apply yourselves. So with that in mind, after this workshop or after this webinar, I will be sharing the slides or the few resources with you. And also I'll be providing you with a survey. So please do fill out that survey after the webinar to give us your feedback about tonight's webinar. So without further ado, let's get started and hear from our panelists. So the first question I have for our panelists is, you know, what are the main approaches to ethics? Are there main approaches, and what are they? And once our panelists tell us what they are, I'm going to start a poll to ask you, as the 98 attendees, which approach you follow. So who would like to take this question?
Yeah, me. Hi, everybody. Let me talk about the different approaches in ethics. In ethics, we have 2 different approaches. They are totally opposite to each other. The first one is deontological approach. We call it. We can also call it as act-oriented approach. This approach is focusing on the act or the behavior itself and how ethically was demonstrated, which means it doesn't consider the results or consequences at all. This is the rule, and it should be followed as stated. No exceptions or changes as long as the rule didn't mention. In other words, behavior should be black or white, no gray accepted. So this approach is very strict and it's really very firm in following the rules. For example, if the code says no gifts should be accepted, then BCBA should follow this rule exactly as it is without exception. On the other hand, we have the other approach, which we call it utilitarian approach. It's also called as results-oriented approach. From its name, this approach is considering the rightness or wrongness of a behavior and how will it result. It focuses on the consequence or final result of a behavior. So if that behavior may cause a harm or lead to a negative result to the client, then the flexibility here is acceptable. In other words, Gray is allowed here as long as this gray achieves the benefit of the client. So for example, for the code that says no gifts should be accepted and the BCBA received a draw by his or her 4-year-old client with autism, then the BCBA should think here, if I didn't accept this gift, will that affect my client's emotional side? Will it cause a negative feelings for him? If yes, then he or she needs to follow this approach and accept the gift to avoid the emotional harm that may happen to the client if he did not accept it. So yeah, these are the two approaches in ethics.
Great, thank you, Mariam. How about you? Which approach do you think you follow?
For me, I'm following utilitarian approach. It's really important to mention that utilitarian approach, which is being flexible in some cases and for the benefit of the client, it's very important to mention that it doesn't mean that you are not following the code or the rules. You are following it. So, but flexibility is acceptable here. So yeah, this one.
Great. Thank you, Mariam. I think I would agree with you. And I think that's an important point to make, that you can have a utilitarian approach to ethics, but still be following the rules and adhering to the code. So let me just close this poll. So thank you to those of you who responded. So let me just share the results with you. So as you can see, 16 people identified that they follow a deontological approach, so a bit more rigid in their approach to ethics. And 41 people said that they follow utilitarian. 6 identified that they're not sure. So that's great. So thank you for that. So next, sorry, just one second. Let me just get back to the PowerPoint. So thank you so much for that, Mariam, and introducing us to the main approaches to ethics. So the next I have is about students' rights. And when I talk about students here, I'm talking about all students. So typically developing students and students of determination. And I want to talk about their right to effective education. And the reason why I'd like us to discuss this tonight is in light of this seminal article that's here on your screen that was published in 1991 by a task force of ABAI that was led by Barrett. So it's Barrett et al. 1991, where they outlined 6 main rights that students have, all students around the world, to effective education. So I would just like our panelists tonight to take us through each of these rights and just, you know, specifically put it in, contextualize it and put it in the light of the UAE. So let's begin with the first right, which is the right to educational context. So who would like to outline this right for our attendees this evening?
Okay, so I'll start with the educational context.
Thank you, Moza.
So basically, all students have the right to get an appropriate environment that facilitates learning and encourage them to academically improve. Also, the educational environment of the school should not hinder the goals of the educational process. In addition, every student should feel comfortable, get attention, and be treated with care in their schools. Schools should also provide some support for parents who need to learn skills of teaching and parenting. And finally, students have the right to get attention at home that help them to learn and keep them being successful at school. So schools need to communicate and make recommendations to parents. I think you are muted, Dr. Michelle.
Thank you for the prompt, Moza. I was talking away to myself. Moza, can you just mute yourself? I'll just mute you there while I'm talking. Thank you, Moza, for outlining that right from Barrett et al. 1991. So, Moza, I have a couple of follow-up questions, if that's okay. So my first question is, how is the UAE doing? Are they ensuring that our students in the UAE have a good educational context?
Okay, so schools in UAE trying to provide the best educational environment to facilitate learning, like providing resources rooms, copy centers, libraries, and gym, etc.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely true. I think the facilities here in the UAE are really second to none in a lot of schools. But what about now, in light of COVID-19 and this global pandemic? How is the UAE doing in terms of making sure that our students continue to get effective education, even in light of this pandemic? What do you think?
UAE have done a great job during the pandemic, since before all the students in public schools have their own laptops provided from the government for free. Also, UAE have provided free Wi-Fi to those families who cannot provide their own to facilitate distance learning. This country have succeeded in applying distance education from the first application, after providing 1 week of training for teachers and 2 trial weeks for students.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. Providing, sorry, Muz, I'm just going to mute you. Providing, you know, free Wi-Fi and computers to all students in public schools is fantastic. It really is very applaudable. Can I ask about the last part that you summarized? You talked about students having the right to get attention at home and to, you know, to get that care from parents, and that schools should be working with parents. How is the UAE in terms of working with parents, do you think?
So our schools conduct lectures and meetings with parents to help them improving their skills in teaching, parenting, and how to provide the best environment for studying at home.
Great to hear, and thank you, Adil, for your comment in the chat function here, where he mentioned that even private schools have provided devices. So that, I mean, really is phenomenal of the UAE to make sure that our students are getting access to effective education. I have a follow-up question, and maybe I'll put this to Amina. Amina, if you're willing to take it. So we had a question from one of our attendees who said, how is the UAE handling this particular right for children of determination? What's your opinion on that, Amina?
Well, I think, you know, that this is a really unprecedented time. I don't think anybody has really experienced something similar in the past, historically. And I think that the UAE, compared to other places in the world, have actually done a really good job. So, you know, as a parent, my daughter attends the Mohammed bin Rashid Center, the New England Center in Abu Dhabi, and I have, from the beginning, although it's been a very challenging time for my daughter and for us as a family, I think I've always felt support from staff. And there's ongoing online activities for me to do with her and for her to do while she's at home and while everybody's keeping safe.
Great, thank you for that, Amina, and thank you for your question, Shilpa. And I mean, look, it's not easy for parents, for sure. It's definitely not easy, and it's not easy for the schools. And I think everyone's just trying their best, as you said, in these unprecedented times. So let's move on to our next. Right. Oh, there's a comment here from Ranjini who said, at Al Noor, we have been following a very successful distance rehabilitation program with almost 90% of the students actively involved in the program. I mean, that's a fantastic response rate with 90% of your students actively engaged. So congratulations to you. And I do think UAE is doing very good at maintaining this right for our students to effective education during the pandemic. So let's move on to the second right from Barrett et al. And that's curriculum and instructional objectives. So who would like to summarize this for our attendees, for our 114 attendees this evening?
Okay, so I want it. So the main thing about curriculum and instructional objectives is sequencing the objectives from the simplest to the more complex. So for example, the child cannot learn addition or subtraction unless he learned numbers before. Also, all objectives should be measurable. Teachers should be able to measure that the student mastered the previous objective to ensure that he gained the prerequisite knowledge or skills to move on to the next objective, which is the more complex one. Also, all objectives should be considered as mastered based on the accuracy and fluency. We want our student, of course, to answer the questions correctly, but we also want them to perform fluently. Also, of course, we have to include objectives that should be maintained by the natural consequences. So, for example, if the child learned, for example, let's say addition, they can take this skill that they learned and implement it in the supermarket, pharmacy, and in the real life. Also, teachers should, of course, ensure that all objectives gained by our skills gained by the students, they should be maintained. We want our students to not forget the information after the exam or after doing a test or something. We want them to maintain it. So for the UAE, yes.
I was just going to ask you about the UAE. So you read my mind, Fatima. You read my mind. Off you go.
Okay. So for the UAE, the Emirati school model curriculum, they ensure that all objectives are ordered critically and sequentially. Students learn the basics from the kindergarten, and they scaffold the learning throughout the learning journey. So basics at kindergarten and building on the knowledge once they go through the other grades. Also, they measure the skills gained by the students by implementing some exams, international exams and local exams, to ensure that all the students mastered the objectives or the outcomes they need to meet.
Great. Thank you so much, Fatima. And baby Linda just made a comment there in our chat function that said attainable practical objectives can be included as well. And yeah, you're absolutely right. And I do love, I put in the comments there, I said precision teaching, because I do think that focus on fluency-based instruction and precision teaching is really key and does lead to those outcomes like maintenance that Fatima summarized. So thank you so much for that, Fatima. That was great. So let's move on to our third right. I'll come back to your question, Joe, in a moment. Let's just move on to our third right for now, which is the right to assessment and student placement. So Amal, can you maybe tell us a little bit about this right, please?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Dr. Michelle. Well, when it comes to the decision-making surrounding students' placement, it should be conducted based on assessment and reports. Also, let's say the level of skills and knowledge needed should be also done based on proper assessment. For example, in the Ministry of Education or in the UAE, we are following the rule which say no Emirati left behind. So the UAE is dedicated to implement a great assessment strategy, which is, let's say, comprehensive, looking into it from different aspects, which is like gender, if the child is, like a typically development children, or he has, any sort of, let's say, determination. This will allow us to verify the assessment methods and any tools that should be used. It also should be done the assessment should ensure the integrity and accountability. Also, if any assessment done here in UAE, we are ensuring the fairness among the students, which will really reflect the true level of the students. There is also what we call it like continuous feedback, which is provided to the learner or to the students. In addition to that, we also providing academic support when needed. For example, if there is, especially now with the COVID-19, there is like some special arrangement needed for some students with the special needs. And also there is some alignment has done for the learning achievement. And this is briefly, I think.
Great, thank you, Emma. That's fantastic. And how often are assessments done? I mean, you mentioned in your introduction that you have 5 boys. So how often would they be assessed in a school year? Is it just at the start or just at the end, or is it multiple times?
Well, actually, it depends to the level. Like for KG, it's different, and for the secondary is different. For example, there is something called entrance assessment or entrance exam, and this is they normally do it, like prior to any intake, and it depends to the private school is different and the government schools also, because in the UAE educational system we have different of like it's like if it's EDX system, it's Ministry of Education, or it's in KHDA. So it differs. But I would like to add something, if you will allow me, like even, like the alignment that we are doing for the learning achievement, it's, aligned with the post-secondary requirement. Let's say if it's, like there is any national or international level that we should approach, so the assessment is done, like, so it can be aligned with the, like this level. Also, there is alignment with the industry requirements, because so we in Ministry of Education, or let's say even in other educational institutions, they are ensuring that it's, again, we don't forget to measure, like that it should be aligned to, like both industrial and, like the educational level. One last point,
yes,
if you will allow me, that we also are, like considering the skills, which is, like there is some assessment are done to like evaluate the skills of students, such as, like the soft skills, the 21st century skills, which is needed to be assessed, and it really help, like at the end in to know the level of the students. At the end also there is, like especially nowadays, we are assessing the IT skills to ensure that learners or students are really equipped with these important skills. So they are using different strategy, let's say formal or informal strategies to ensure these points.
Great, thank you. And talking about strategies, will we move on to right number 4, which is the instructional methods? So in terms of how would you connect that to the UAE then, Emma?
Yes, sure. Well, as you know that here in the UAE, the knowledge-based economy concept has been adopted by the UAE leadership. So we have it's like since more than 10 years, this knowledge-based economy was adopted to encourage the educational and educationalists to review and implement a new curriculum. And it's not only a new curriculum, but it's also like, like we are emphasizing more in the transformation from teacher-centered learning to the student-centered learning nowadays. So let's say thousands of professional development program has been conducted, not only by Ministry of Education, but also by different educational provider in the country to implement and assist educators throughout this transformation. Also some, like some other instructional method that currently is implemented focus on teamwork, let's say collaborative learning, experimental learning, inquiry-based learning, storytelling, show and tell, and other, like strategies that use in instructional methods. In addition to that, this is also there is, like a really essential part, like our, like our staff in each school in UAE, they are, like participating in annual, and there is annual inspection done by Ministry of Education. So they are visiting the schools, either private and public school, to ensure and support the implementation of student-centered learning in the UAE.
Fantastic, Amal. Thank you so much. And I mean, tonight our event is student-led, so I think we can see the benefits of student-led instruction just from you leading this panel discussion tonight. Thank you so much. So let's move on to the fifth right as per Barrett et al. 1991. So who would like to discuss measurement and summative evaluation?
Me, Fatima.
Okay, Fatima, off you go.
Okay, so measurement and summative evaluation. Simply, teachers should measure students' progress, their progress in the progress in students' performance. So instead of scaling students from the highest to the lowest or giving them A, B, or C. So in other words, students should receive educational programs that focuses on reporting the progress of students' performance. In my point of view, I think it's extremely important to report students' progress, as it allows teachers to know the level that the student was on and what is the level of the student now, and it helps the teachers to know how to plan for future improvements in students' performance. So I think this method ensures that each student will progress indeed. In the UAE, I think they use both. They use the scaling students or giving them A, B, or C based on their results in the exams, but they also conduct meetings with the parents to discuss the students' progress, the students' behavior, students' performance, and how can the teacher and the parent work together to support the child's learning.
Fantastic. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. What a lovely summary. Thank you, Fatima. And our last right then, as per Barrett et al., is the assumption of responsibility for success. So, Ali Azia, do you want to take this?
Yes, sure. So it is about the students have the right to go to a school where there are consequences for the school staff, depending on how the students are learning and achieving objectives. So if the student is not learning, it is not the fault of the student. It is the teacher responsibility. The programs in school should be changed until the student achieve the learning outcomes. If the educational needs of the students are not met, the student has the right to change the program itself or even the school. That's all.
Thank you, Ali Azia. And I mean, what do you think about the UAE? What can they do in terms of making teachers more accountable and getting them to encourage them to assume responsibility for the success of their students?
In my opinion, I suggest in UAE to add a student achievement as a measurement for each teacher in the teacher annual evaluation. This will let all teachers take more responsibility and make more efforts in order to make all students succeed and achieve.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great suggestion, actually, Ali Azia, and maybe it could even be a criterion for promotion, that promotion be contingent on student outcomes as well as years of service. And Lami, in our comments in our chat here, has said the student is always right. And of course, that's what we follow here. So that was great. Thank you so much. And Ghazala also made the point that she feels it's very important that goals should be achievable and meaningful to the student. And that's coming back to that social significance of all the goals in education. So I absolutely agree with you, Ghazala. Thank you for that comment. So those were our 6 right. Now, as you know, for board certified behavior analysts, we must adhere to our ethics code. So one of these codes in this, is 7.01, which is promoting an ethical culture. So we are tasked with promoting this ethical culture in our work environments and making others aware of this code. So my question to my panelists is, how can we, everyone here, the 115 people who are attending, how can we all create an ethical culture at work and make others aware of the code?
For me, I think it's really important to have ethical culture in our workplace, whatever, in schools or even not schools, outside the schools. So I had some ideas that I suggested previously about promoting ethical culture in schools. I call it the Ethics Initiative. This initiative highlights one code each week that should be emphasized by all staff. This week includes different activities. The first activity is, I call it development box. So this box is available for staff to write a note about providing suggestions of what the school can provide or do to help staff adhering this code. So at the end of the week, the school principal opens this box and read the suggestions to enrich the environment with needed tools to have ethical culture. Other idea I had as part of the ethics initiative is it's a competition. So it's like a short competition for staff that uses Kahoot tool. I think everybody knows Kahoot. If not, so this tool is it's like a game-based platform that allows users to make multiple choice quizzes, and participants can do them using their phones, laptops, or other devices. So Kahoot will be used to demonstrate 5 situations which need adhering the code, with 4 different choices of different reactions to each situation. It should be one of them the right one. So staff need to read the situation and choose the best reaction to that to adhere the code of the week. So this competition needs accurate and fast answers. The top 3 winners will get a reinforcement. The principal decides based on the school ability which type of reinforcement the staff can get.
And we all love competition, don't we?
Yes.
Competitive in nature. Great. So any other ideas? Anyone else in the panel?
Well, I would like just to add to what Mariam said, like, as you know that in, like, let's say in the educational background or in ministry or in school, we have unique culture because people are from different backgrounds. So it's good to share best practices worldwide. So let's say if we have, like someone who's from a different country, so it's good to listen to them, to see what ethics mean to them, based on assessing, and knowing what, what knowledge they have about ethics. We can provide or establish a framework which can be unifying based on the practices, and also we can build activities among that. We can build, let's say, some sort of like awareness campaign using different needs. And also we can also do, like in counseling, we do face-to-face counseling session. We can also add some, like, as I think previously Eliasia said, ethics to the appraisal of each individual. For example, let's say, because each individual, each stakeholder in the school environment, from the principal, from like teacher and counselor, they have KPI which they should achieve. So we can put the ethics, one of the elements that they should be evaluated based on. In addition to that, I have an idea to just, like, incorporate such ethics into the system of the IT, especially nowadays with the COVID-19, everything is, like, in the system and online. So let's say if we create a system, there can be automatic message which will, like, show if, are you sure you can do this, or are you sure you will proceed with this? This a bit, like, it will give us sort of, let's say, practice or alert, so we can go back and think of these ethics. In addition to that, I think attending conferences is really crucial and important, because we can update our knowledge. We can, like, read more, research, know about the research which has been done, and take the result of such conferences and share it among, like, the system, with all stakeholders, with the students, parents, staff, nationally and internationally. So to ensure this all, I think, will help to ensure we have, let's say, culture of high ethics.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, they're great points, Amal. And I think just to tag on to what you said, organizations then need to support their staff in terms of attending these conferences, whether they help fund it or allow them time off, etc. So I think that they're really great suggestions. Any other suggestions from our panelists?
I have one point to add. Mariam and Amal, you have fascinating ideas, mashallah. Amal, I think, mentioned the awareness campaigns and attending conferences. No doubt about it, it's extremely important. And I think we can add discussion sessions. For example, if we were in a school, we can arrange discussion sessions where the staff talk about ethical dilemmas that they faced and how they reacted, and the other staff can help them know how can they react better or overcome the mistakes that they did, just to increase their confidence about their reaction towards any ethical dilemma, and help them to increase their knowledge about the ethics in general. So I think it will reflect on the ethical culture in the school if they did that. And that's it.
Great, thank you, Fatima. So there's been a few comments in the chat here where Mira has said in her experience, the best way is modeling rather than just training staff, because our actions speak louder than words. So I think, you know, yeah, it's all about us showing how to engage in these ethical behaviors. So that's a great point, Mira. Ghazala and a couple of others, Shilpa, have talked about using, you know, proactive rather than just reactive strategies. And I think our panelists have given us an array, but one proactive strategy that I think would be very useful is taken from this article here, which was written by Broadhead and Higby in 2012. And I can share this link after this workshop. And they talk about nominating a company supervisor of ethical behavior. In other words, an ethics coordinator. So having someone officially responsible in your organization to organize all these events, to promote awareness, to make people aware of the code. And I think that assigned ethics coordinator could then be very proactive in terms of making sure that the behaviors of the center are all ethical in nature. So I think that addresses the questions that have been raised in our chat. So thank you so much for those recommendations, everyone. So now let's move on to like core ethical principles. And I guess my first question to our panelists are there core ethical principles in ABA? And if so, what are they?
Sure, I'll take that. So back in 1998, Kuchar and Keith Spiegel published 9 ethical principles for psychologists. And in their 2006 panelists, Bailey and Birch actually related those principles to ABA. So today, if you'll allow myself and my colleague Ilyazia, we're hoping to go through them and see how they relate to the BACB code itself. So the first code is doing no harm. Would you like to go ahead, Ilyazia, with that?
Sure. So doing no harm actually means that behavior analysts should make habit regarding 2 things: to help a client, or at least to do no harm to the client. Behavior analysts should consider the benefit of his client and avoid whatever is harmful.
That's true, Ilyazia, but I can't imagine a behavior analyst intentionally doing harm to one of their clients.
Actually, there are different ways that behavior analysts could do harm for the client, like when the behavior analyst applies an intervention with the client that is out of his expertise, or by missing out important data. For example, a BCBA who works in hospital, and once a day he received a new case of child who is engaging in self-injury behavior, as his mom said that. The BCBA started to take a data collection for 1 week, and then he informed the mother that her child fine and he can go back to his house as he is not engaging in any self-injury at all. Unfortunately, after 2 weeks, the mother called the hospital asking for ambulance to take her child because he is bleeding as he engaged in self-injury behavior. And guess what, Anna? A review of the case determined that the BCBA failed to determine the severity of the problem as he was just taking data on the morning, and the client actually started the self-injury on the middle of the day when he is more active.
So in this case, the BCBA actually caused harm to the client unintentionally.
Yeah.
Point taken. The second ethical principle outlined by Kucher and Keith Spiegel is respecting autonomy. And this is one of the first points outlined in the right to effective treatment by Van Houten et al. And I guess it's also referred to in the BACB code when it talks about incorporating client preference.
Yes, absolutely, Anna. It means to promote the client independence. The behavior analyst uses procedures that support the client independence, like shaping, chaining, fading, conditioned reinforcers, and token economies. You know, the problem happens when someone wants to keep another one under his control. Actually, I read an example in Billy and Birch book for one mother that wants to choose the type of food that she wants her daughter to eat rather than allow her daughter to apply or practice and as she learned in the center.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Eliazia. Our third principle is benefiting others. And I think that the fundamental objective for all behavior analysts is to benefit others. I mean, that's why we enter this field, right?
Yes, it's absolutely the main reason for me to enter this field, to benefit others. Behavior analysts should benefit others in every situation and setting they work on. This principle leads for such a disagreement between a behavior analyst and other professionals. It requires frequent checks on who is the client in every condition and situation. One example here to explain this principle: a teacher who refers her students to the BCBA as she figured out that the student has an aggression problem from the data sheet that she conducted for several weeks. She stated that the student always throw down the tasks and refused to complete it. Anna, what do you think the BCBA should do here?
I'm not sure. I guess they would run a program to reduce aggression based on escaping demands.
Well, actually, the behavior analyst looked at the student as her client, and so she decided to take a new data. And guess what? She figured out that the client aggression because he is suffering from continuous bullying in the class due to his disabilities. That leads him to throw the papers down, not because he doesn't want to complete the task.
Wow. So by taking the extra time and effort, the BCBA was actually able to do what was best for the student. That's amazing.
And to figure out the function of the client behavior. So let's move to the fourth principle, which is being just. And always when I read about being just, it comes to my mind that when I will be a BCBA, I have to ask always myself when creating any client, how I would like one of my family to be treated in similar circumstances.
Absolutely, Eliazia. I mean, the way that Bailey and Birch put it, being just refers to treating clients the way we ourselves would like to be treated. And a common example that I'm sure many of the BCBAs attending might have come across is a waiting program. So if we consider this principle, we have to ask ourselves, how fair is it? How just is it to have sometimes a very young client sit down with their arms folded, without fidgeting, no access to reinforcers until, you know, the timer goes off. Eliazia, as a grown, mature, highly intelligent individual, would you yourself comply to something like this with no apparent reason?
Actually, I don't think I could.
Exactly. So why would we ask our clients to do so? For example, a better way to present this program would be in a situation where it has more social validity. So you could present a waiting program for a child when they're waiting for their turn at the swings, or they're waiting in a queue at a supermarket.
Yeah, I agree, Amna. So the next ethical principle is about being faithful, which I think means to be loyal, trustworthy, and honest.
Exactly. And being faithful can be seen all over the BACB ethics code. It refers to integrity, avoiding deceptive statements, truthful and accurate information, examination honesty, and all these are related to the faithfulness of a behavior analyst.
The behavior analysts had to be faithful in everything they do, not just related to ABA. They have to be faithful with their colleagues and administrators.
Absolutely. An ethical behavior analyst is faithful to their clients, to supervisors and supervisees, and faithful to the BACB and the profession of behavior analysis.
Yes, and yesterday I remembered you told me one example of this. Could you please tell us about it?
Yeah, sure. So a BCBA that I know was actually applying a new job position, and she was really, really excited to get this job. But during the interview, the person that was interviewing her had actually misunderstood something on her CV. So she thought that she had work experience at a company, but she was actually only just affiliated with it. So being faithful, the BCBA actually corrected the interviewer, even though she was worried that she might not get the job.
Oh, she was really ethical.
Yeah, and the good news is that she did actually get the job, so being ethical works.
Yeah, nice. Okay, how about the text principle? About what topic do you think, Anna?
According dignity.
Yes, exactly, according dignity. And I think this is similar to what was mentioned before in respecting autonomy principle. It is about treating clients with decency and respect.
Yeah, and this is so important because when you treat your client with decency and respect, it sends a message to others that the client is self-determined and that they should be treated with the same dignity as any other neurotypical individual. And that awareness, I think, is really, really important for society, especially here in the UAE in the Middle East.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
And of course, one of the simplest ways to accord dignity to a client is by giving them a choice in their day-to-day activities and schedules. So, for example, if you're running a dressing program, having the client choose what they wear will make it more reinforcing for them. And also, a dressing program is great because once they master it, the client will be able to dress themselves independently without that kind of indignity of having someone else dress them every day.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really excellent point, Amina, that you're making. And, something that I'm really trying to focus on with my 4-year-old boy, getting him to choose what he wears every day. Now, I mean, we end up going out with one pink sock and one blue polka dot sock. I don't care because he made that choice and it prevents any problem behavior. So I've asked in the chat there, what choices do all our attendees offer their clients or students? So let's get some responses from our attendees. So Joy has shared that in dressing, options of what to put on first, choosing the outfit, etc. That's a great one. Lamy has said a choice of activities. And usually it's good to give that closed choice. Do you want to do this or this rather than leaving it open-ended? Mona Al-Haddad, my former colleague from Saudi Arabia, has said that she offers options about what programs to start with. And I think that's great. And that's a really great one, Mona. And it's a good one for parents with homework. Look, you have to do your Arabic homework and you have to do your math homework, but which one do you want to do first? So still giving that choice. Oh, we've got lots of examples coming through. Let me just give you some more. Shoba said choosing the tasks for the day, choice of food. Kazmina said choice of what to work on first, like I just said, first then. Rana has said the same, choosing potential reinforcers, and that's essential. Thank you for that, Rana. Huda has suggested giving choice about what they want for lunch, what reward, the toys they want to play with. Baby Linda agreed and said the kind of toys as well. Adela said to work with the iPad or the laptop. So again, giving that lovely inner choice within reinforcers. Yvonne Yap has reminded us that, to remind that, you know what, if you need help, I'm right here. And I think that's a good reminder for us all. Arisa has said to provide options of what sequence to do activities. And I think that's great. I mean, I think sometimes, and my husband and I ran into this where he was teaching my son to brush his teeth one way and I was teaching another way. And I think it was good for my son to learn that flexibility around, you know what, it doesn't matter if you wet the toothbrush first or if you put the toothpaste on first. So giving him that choice was great. Some other suggestions from our attendees. Zoe has said choice of school activities, example worksheets, the same sheet but in a different order. Dana has said choosing where to sit if you can allow that. So yes, you don't always have to sit in this chair at this table. So maybe just sitting somewhere different to do their work. Sharifa Yateem has said to take a break when the student needs to escape from work. And yeah, it's definitely important to accord dignity and allow our students to take a break when they want. Mara has said doing house chores for teenage clients, so giving some choice in there. Baby Linda said to give choice with books. And Amira has said giving them choice with their snacks. So it sounds like everyone's doing a really great job of offering choice and according dignity in their clients and students. So thank you so much for that. So let's move on now to principle number 7.
So the principle number 7 is about treating others with caring and compassion. Empathizing with our clients and treating them kindly is an essential part of being a behavior analyst.
Absolutely, Eliazia. I mean, to be honest, I think that this is the underlying message of all ethical principles and codes ever. It's to treat others with care and compassion. And I'm not a BCBA yet, so I'm sure that most of the attendees will have much more experience with this than I do. But, behavior therapists and behavior analysts, they're often faced with very challenging behavior. And in that moment, I'm sure that it's really difficult to put yourself in your client's shoes and see things from their perspective, no matter how hard you try. Having said that, it is really amazing how sometimes something so small can affect a client's behavior. And sometimes just saying something like, I know it's hard, or something like that, just lets the client know that you care and that you understand them.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Amanan. I mean, I think it's important to do that with our kids. Look, I know you're having a difficult time, and just making them see that you're trying to empathize and see it from their perspective. And I think I agree with you, Amina, that this is really a foundational principle, in that we should always treat our clients and our students as if they were our own kids and ensure that we're treating them with care and compassion. So that's great. So let's move on to principle number 8.
Now, the next ethical principle outlined by Kucher and Keith Spiegel is pursuit of excellence. And since my colleagues and I are still at the beginner stage of pursuing our degrees to become BCBAs, I think we could probably ask Dr. Michelle for her opinion on pursuing excellence.
Sure, no problem, Amina. And as you all know, just because you get your board certification doesn't mean that's the end of it. That's the end of your education. Of course, we need to continue and get our CEUs. And one great example of that, of course, is what you're doing tonight. So I'll ask that in the chat again, if you can all get your typing fingers out and tell me some ways that you all, our 115 attendees, maintain your competence through professional development. So what do you do to pursue excellence in the field of ABA. And as I said, so please share your thoughts in the chat function. But of course, as I said, tonight you're doing a really great job in just being here, dedicating 2 hours of your time, to hear, to learn more about ethics, which is absolutely fantastic. So Gunjan is saying, attending as many webinars and panel discussions just like today. That's great, Gunjan. Naomi is saying, Naomi Wheeler, nice to have you. She's saying, oh goodness, they're all coming through very fast. Staying up to date on research articles, which is absolutely fantastic. Diala is talking about listening to podcasts, research, workshops. That's great. Ghazala, attending CEU events, attending conferences, presenting workshops, which is great. Dana is talking about listening to podcasts, and I so many amazing podcasts out there right now, and I can maybe give some links in the resources afterwards, and that's a great way to pursue excellence. Shadan is talking about podcasts as well, so lots of shout outs to podcasts. Collaborating with others, that's a great one, Shadan. Joy, again, reviewing new literature, attending CEU events, listening to podcasts, so we're seeing lots of the same ones. Mira is saying encouraging her staff at behavior enrichment with internal trainings, attending workshops, and even participating in research projects, which help them learn more and give them a sense of achievement. That's an excellent one, Mira. Monica, talking about participating in webinars, absolutely. Keeping up with the latest literature from Kelly Gallagher. Thank you, Kelly. Any other different ones? Jocelyn is telling us that she always aligns her interventions with the articles, which involves researching all the time. And that's really important, that as behavior analysts, we are using evidence-based strategies in the workplace. Dr. Clodagh Murray, one of my colleague at ECAE, is talking about how she attends conferences, listens to podcasts, reads journal articles. And a good recommendation from Dr. Clodagh is that she uses Google Scholar alerts for topics that she's particularly interested in. So that's a great suggestion, Clodagh, to set those alerts. Rana's talking about consulting with other BCBAs and professionals. And I think that intercollaboration is a really important way to pursue excellence. Thank you for that, Rana. Kira, reading the recent research literature, absolutely crucial. Who else? Michael, training others. Teaching is the best way to learn. And maybe our panelists agree with you on that one, Michael, that teaching you tonight about ethics was a great way for them to learn and maybe maintain all of these ethics topics tonight. Nusaiba, another ECAE student, talks about participating in research labs and having discussions with more experienced BCBAs. That's excellent, Nusaiba. And Monica said something similar, communicating with mentors. Shobha did a 2-year diploma in Canada and is now pursuing RBT and listening to sessions conducted by ECAE. And don't forget, Shobha, we offer a postgraduate diploma and a Master's of Education. So if anyone's pursuing further education, please feel free to reach out to me. Let me see if there's any other ones. Arisa, attending this webinar. Absolutely, you're pursuing excellence right now. So that's great. Mona Al-Haddad is finishing her PhD, which is absolutely amazing. Good luck with that, Mona. Sarah Musa, one of my former students, reading articles and discussing with BCBA's peers for individualizing students' intervention. That's a great one, Sarah. So lovely to hear from you, Sarah. Joe Kenneth is talking about self-involvement in awareness campaigns and be an advocate in joining groups that study about ABA. That's a great one, Joe Kenneth. Monica, discuss difficult cases with other BCBAs to ensure you follow ethics codes. That's an excellent one, Monica. Marielle, reading new trends in ABA and articles. So these are all absolutely fantastic ways. And as Kismet just added there as well, keeping abreast with current scientific trends. So I really think you can never stop learning. We all have to be lifelong learners as behavior analysts. So thank you all so much for your contributions there. So let's move on to our 9th and final principle.
So our final principle by Kutcher and Keith Spiegel is accepting accountability. And this is an essential trait in all professions, but I think it's especially important for behavior analysts because we're responsible for our clients, we're responsible for our supervisees, and we're also responsible for the reputation of our profession. Now, to err is human, and acknowledging that we sometimes make mistakes and being able to accept the consequences of our actions is a really important skill. Eliazia, can you think of any examples about accepting accountability?
Yes, how about what we discussed in class about the RBT example?
Oh yeah, that's a great one. So imagine that you're a BCBA, and as part of your position, you supervise an RBT's implementation of a behavior change program. Now, the client's mother comes to you and asks you to make some adjustments to the program. And of course, you make a note to relay this to the RBT. But as a very busy BCBA, you get distracted by a more serious client case and you forget. 2 weeks later, the mother complains to you that the RBT has not been implementing the adjustments that you discussed. So, Eliazia, if you don't mind, what do you think you would do in this situation?
Maybe I will go back to check with the RBT. What do you think?
Well, either you could tell the mother that you'll review this with the RBT and not say anything more, or else you could admit that you actually had not relayed that information to the RBT and that it was in fact your mistake. Now, you might risk appearing unprofessional in front of the parent, but as an ethically behaved BCBA, you believe in being held accountable. And surely, in my opinion, an experience like that, you would probably go back and engage in behavior self-management strategies to ensure that you had better communication and better follow-up in the future. So all in all, I think that, you're making yourself a better person.
That's great. Thank you so much, Amina, for that. So just to recap, and someone asked in the chat if we'll be sharing those slides, and I will certainly share these slides with you, so don't worry if you missed out. But these core ethical principles that were first outlined by Kuchar and Keith Spiegel, and then Bailey and Birch in 2016 related them specifically to the field of ABA. So all of us behaviour analysts should, of course, do no harm. We should respect the autonomy of our clients or students. We should always try to benefit others. We should be just, be faithful. We should always accord dignity. And one really great way of doing that is using the antecedent intervention of offering choice as much as we can to our clients. We should treat our clients with caring, compassion, treat them as if they were our own children. We should continue to pursue excellence and maintain competence through professional development like you're doing tonight. And as Amina said, we're all human, we all make mistakes, that's okay, and we should just be honest and accept the accountability and take the issue from there. So thank you so much. And there's been some praise in the chat about how much of a good job Amina and Aliazia did in outlining each of these core principles. So thank you, Amina and Aliazia, you really did a wonderful job on that. So let's move on to our next topic. And there's a lot of a stream of praise coming through for the ladies. So thank you to our great panelists. So our fifth question for this evening, and I want to talk about another code that as behavior analysts, we should be adhering to. And this code is 6.02, and we are obliged as behavior analysts to promote behavior analysis by making information about it available through presentations, discussions, other media, webinars. But my question is, how do we do that right now while in the midst of coronavirus, in the midst of this global pandemic? Do our panelists have any suggestions as to how we can disseminate? And please, for those of you who are attending, please feel free to share your ideas in the chat and I'll share them with everyone as well. So panelists, how can we disseminate during COVID-19?
I was thinking about only using social media to disseminate behavior analysis because of COVID-19. Therefore, I could use my Instagram page, sharing posts and short videos with ABA content. Direct message will be available for people who need to ask more about certain topics. I'll use the story of Instagram to share my daily posts of how I simply use ABA with my daughter. Also, I could make a live video on Instagram to share and discuss different scenarios related to behavior analysis.
That's great, Maria. And would you intend to do that in Arabic or English or a mix? What are your thoughts?
I could do both, like Sharifa team does, the first Emirati BCBA. But I want to focus more in Arabic because, as you know, ABA is not disseminated in Arabic language as much as it is in English. And we are trying to disseminate ABA in UAE and Arabic countries as much as possible.
Great, thanks, Moza. And do you have any other ideas for how we can disseminate?
I think I can also create a WhatsApp group and add members who are interested in learning more about ABA, like friends, siblings, relatives. And every day I'll share a certain topic about ABA. After that, I might ask the members questions and discuss some scenarios. In addition, everyone is welcome to ask any question in any time.
Great, I love those ideas, Moza, and their ideas. Oh, some feedback. I love those ideas, Moza. And actually, as you were talking, some people in the chat were also suggesting WhatsApp and social media. So yeah, that they're great ideas that we can all do straight away. We can start doing them tonight. Any other suggestions from our other panelists?
I have some ideas just to go a little bit further. I have an idea, I call it online training sessions. So these sessions are targeting parents using online applications like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, WebEx as we use. So I will conduct regular sessions to train parents how to improve their children's quality of life using ABA principles. I will make sure that each session has sufficient content, like not too long or not too short, with making sure that the language used is understandable by parents from different educational level, whether in Arabic or in English. Even if I just say it in Arabic or present it in Arabic, I will not use the complex terminologies. If I will say, I will definitely explain what does it mean. So, for example, a session about reinforcement, how can the mom reinforce her child? Another session is about punishment, and so on. In these sessions, audience are allowed to ask questions or write comments. I have another idea. I call it 5-minute step. This is the name of series videos that each one has one tip for the community about applying ABA principles in their dealing with their children, siblings, or family. These videos will have a content that was provided and agreed by at least 3 behavior analysts. So I'll meet with my colleagues in the field to prepare a content for each episode, and then we will video record it professionally with assistance of local channel. After I deal with them to record and share through their TV channels and social media channels. We will make sure, as I said before, in the online training sessions, that the language used is understandable by the society without using the complex terminologies, without explaining or defining them.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mariam, for those. And I think that's really key, using simple language without those complex terms. And I love talking about doing it in Arabic and, you know, spreading awareness in Arabic as well is fantastic. Does anyone else have any other suggestions before I go to our attendees' suggestions?
I have an idea.
Okay.
I'm thinking about a more practical way to promote for applied behavior analysis. So I'm working at the Ministry of Education, and we have a system called CRM system. This system allows you to put a recommendation, and the system connects your recommendation with the responsible department and ensures that this department will respond to your recommendation. So I put a I will use this system and put a recommendation for the higher educational or higher education department to encourage universities and colleges to offer applied behavior analysis as an academic field in our universities and colleges. The next step, I'll go to meet with, or I will request an online meeting due to COVID-19. I'll request an online meeting with the school operation manager and the human resources manager. I'll discuss with them the importance of the role of the behavior analyst and how will it affect the behavior of students in the schools in the UAE. Once they realize and approve the importance of it, I can move on to work with the human resources manager to offer recruitment opportunities in UAE, in the Ministry of Education, to recruit more behavior analysts in our schools. So by this step, I will ensure that students who will learn, or students who will learn applied behavior analysis in the universities, they will graduate and they will have a recruitment opportunity in Ministry of Education. So I think it will take a long time, but I think the results worth waiting.
I love it, Fatma, that you're thinking long-term and big scale, and you're absolutely right. Making sure that there are opportunities to recruit behavior analysts, not just in the MOE, but in, across all the different applications and organizations is absolutely fantastic. So I'm just there's been a lot of praise in the chats for how great these ideas are. I'm just going to go to the chat and pull out some different suggestions here as well. Rob Phillips, welcome Rob, has said, we have found that it has been a great opportunity to upskill parents to better support their child. And this is included using ABA techniques and strategies. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Rob. Ghazala said webinars like this one using social media, similar to what Moses said. Joy has said using ABA to direct conversation about current events. And of course, that's definitely very prevalent on social media right now. Mona Al-Haddad from Dar al-Hekma in Saudi Arabia has said we've done similar things like inviting interested public to attend free sessions on various topics in Arabic, which is fantastic to hear. Adil is talking about creating a podcast. You're more than welcome, Adil. Off you go. For sure, I'm fully supportive of that. I'm seeing a lot of online workshops, doing more webinars. Amira has said we can post or discuss about ABA information like total economies in Snapchat. I'm not cool enough for Snapchat, unfortunately, or make a live channel on Instagram, another great idea. Mona has said create a translation task force. Again, that importance of translating pivotal seminal ABA literature into Arabic. Joe Kenneth mentioned how Nicholas Orland has been doing a great job in terms of supporting parents and providing webinars as they implement distance learning. So that's great. And Nick also does great BCBA preparation support. So again, I'll send that link after the website or after the webinar. Dana has said offering telehealth services from BCBAs, absolutely. Huda Al-Hamadi has said she translates some of the slides, podcasts, and ABA Instagram posts with friends and families. How fantastic, Huda. Monica is talking about doing radio interviews with ABA specialists. And actually recently, I'm not sure if he's here, but one of our students, Abdullah Al-Sadi, he was featured on the radio in Sharjah talking about ABA in Arabic. So absolutely, getting on the radio is a great way to go. Mohammed Abdul Salam has said sending brochures to the public pages, which have thousands of followers. Great idea, Mohammed. Diala has suggested sharing success examples might help the image about ABA. And I think that's key. I really do. And Dr. Dick Millott always talks about that, how we need to share the success stories and when ABA really works, and getting advocates of ABA to share their stories across social media and other platforms. So I think that's great, Diala. Afaf has said share some electronic books or articles that parents and teachers can read. Shireen has suggested setting up a YouTube channel. A YouTube channel has just been set up recently, and I apologize, her name escapes me, but she's doing phenomenal work. She's an Arabic-speaking BCBA, and I'll share the link again after this webinar. And she's going through and translating it basically chapter by chapter on her YouTube channel. She's doing fantastic work, and again, I'll share that resource. Minnie has said making webinars free, like this, that more people can access it. Huda has said, analyzing movie characters in ABA perspective, making people want to learn more. So talking about motivation there. Let me see what else. Baby Linda has talked about creating infographics and comic strips. Mara has said, collaborate with other BCBAs to hold a panel session on different topics. Absolutely. Rana has said she would love to see collaborations between professionals to enhance services to people of determination. For example, doctors collaborate with a BCBA to be able to safely implement a medical test such as the COVID-19 test. Wow, what a fantastic idea. I love that. That's a really great suggestion, Rana. And the same goes for collaborating with policymakers. Another great suggestion, Rana Kasef. Marielle is saying that the 5-minute tips that Mariam outlined is really helpful. Some parents really need it during the pandemic for sure. And also with parents' consent, doing talks with nannies is key. Ruba talks about doing video models for some tasks like washing hands or role plays. A great idea, Ruba. Sharifia team has said it's important that during dissemination we collaborate with non-ABA professionals for sure. We have to go outside the fields like Rana suggested in terms of working with doctors, etc. Diala is talking about creating a podcast in Arabic. That would be amazing. Who wants to do it? Mira has said, Mira Romani, a BCBA, has said that she gives free weekly Q&As and parent workshops over Facebook or Zoom during these times. Send me the information, Mara, and I'll share it with everyone. Yeah, Diala is saying a YouTube channel. Yeah, I've already said that. What else? Oh, thank you, Mara. So the lady's name that I was talking about is Hadir Eskander. So let me copy and paste her name. She's the Arabic speaking BCBA. I just put it on so everyone can see. She has created an awesome YouTube channel. She really is doing phenomenal work, and she's also offering free webinars as well. So I highly recommend you check out Hadir. I'll send you resources afterwards. And Amira mentioned making a story about procedures in ABA to simplify the knowledge. So these, we have one final comment and we'll get back to our panelists then. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do a great job pronouncing your name, but Ruqayya Taki, she is the first Kuwaiti BCBA, mashallah, mabruk to you, and she has just started her YouTube channel in Arabic to disseminate ABA. Arudwe is the channel name. Maybe, Ruqayya, if you give me the link, I'll post it so that everyone can see it. So congratulations to you. So there is another YouTube channel in Arabic available. So I'll share that with all of you once I get the link. Yeah, so that is lots of ideas. So no, everyone has to go and disseminate. You have so many ideas now you can take off. And just a couple more, Monica is saying publishing books in Arabic, such as ABA in a visualized manner. So these are absolutely great ideas, but our time is ticking. So let's move on to our next BCBA, and I'll share that link to Ruqayya's YouTube link as soon as she gives it to me. Okay, so let's move on to question 6. And this is one that I'm sure everyone's going to have an opinion on. And my question is the BACB ethics code appropriate, I guess, not just for the UAE, but, you know, the GCC or even just the region, but is it appropriate, let's say, for the UAE? What do you think, panelists? Aliazia?
Yes, I think a lot of the code is appropriate for our country UAE, but there are some parts that not. This is what's related to the receiving and giving gifts or drinking coffee in while the home services. Okay, so first I will talk about the professional and ethical compliance code for behavior analysts. The subcode 1.06 talks about the multiple relationship and conflict of interest. To be more specified, the subcode 1.06D obligates the behavior analyst to not exchange gifts with a client because this is a multiple relationship. And you know, there is another code in UAE that supports that, which is the UAE's Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct for Public Servants. So it states that by obligates the public worker and also his family to avoid conflict of interest by not accepting any gifts or services from whoever if this will influence their decisions or the objectivity of the job performance or will obligate them to do things instead of. You know, in my opinion, I think in UAE we should follow the utilitarian approach as it is more flexible while implementing those rules of conduct. As my colleague Mariam stated, that the utilitarian approach concerns about the consequences of the behavior. So in our culture in UAE, the consequences of refusing gifts or cup of coffee in home services, that the family will feel really upset, and this absolutely will affect in our relationship with the client and may lead for ending their services with us. So, and you know, offering coffee is really a matter of cultural habits, not as the person give you something that you have to give him back something instead of that. So I think if the behavior analyst will refuse the coffee, the behavior analyst will put himself in a very embarrassing situation, because in UAE it is inappropriate if someone give you coffee and you say, I don't want. And that's all what I have.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with you. And it's not just the UAE or the GCC. You know, I'm from Ireland, and if you went to a home in Ireland and someone offered you a cup of tea, didn't offer you a cup of tea, you'd be wondering what's going on. So I absolutely agree with you. And Ghazala saying there in the comment section that taking a utilitarian approach to this is better and safer, as Ghazala said, so relating it back to that approach. So let's say that we're going to adapt the code to the UAE. So let's say we've been tasked with this, okay? How might we rewrite this code about gifts? What might we write instead?
I have a suggestion to rewrite this code. I think the main important thing is just to differentiate between the gift and hospitality, and we should include this word hospitality in the code. So I suggest to keep it the same with adding something, some phrases in you, like I just suggest like to be like this. Behavior analysts do not accept any gifts from or give any gifts to clients because this constitutes a multiple relationship. Okay, this is the original code. We can add with exception to hospitality. Hospitality is not included as type of gifts, and it can be given and accepted when needed to avoid negative impact on communication with the clients. So I think if we had this code and state this exception clearly, I think this will help behavior analysts to very much in their communication with their clients and their families.
I like that suggestion of separating out gifts from hospitality. And just to pick up on some points that have been made in our chat here, let me just scroll back up. So Mohammed, where is he? Mohammed Abdel Salam said, unfortunately, the ethics code is designed to match the culture in the USA, but we have to be a bit flexible to deal with our culture, especially in terms of accepting coffee or tea in a home session. Dr. Martina Dixon, one of my colleagues at ECAE, said, if anything, the acceptance of coffee or tea is likely an essential precursor to a smooth and comfortable interaction. So this is an excellent point in this and other cultural contexts. And I absolutely agree. And I think by doing what Mariam suggested in terms of making it clear that there's an exception for hospitality, I think that would get around that, which is excellent. Mona Al-Haddad says that cultural influence remains, however, professional boundaries is what we need to keep. And absolutely, Mona, I agree with you that clinical judgment and maintaining professionalism while still perhaps being a little bit flexible in how we follow our code. Baby Linda Saturno also said that not just in the GCC or Ireland, but also in Asian countries as well, it's offensive to decline when parents offer to give you a snack when you visit their home. Mara Saeed says, I agree that we must respect the culture. A suggestion can be to have a declaration that mentions the respectful boundaries boundaries. A thank you note would be an alternative to receiving a gift. Great suggestion, Myra. Jocelyn has said, I think it would be acceptable if the coffee is pre-scheduled by both parties outside the session. And I think that's a great point, Jocelyn, that having the coffee doesn't eat into the client's intervention time. And I think that is key. Rob Phillips agrees that a nice addition of hospitality gifts. Abdullah has said that he's had parents that didn't like him refusing coffee. I think we've all been in that position. Let's see. So Rob is also sharing his story about how he turned up at a house once where they had put a full spread on for him. So that, of course, makes it awkward for everyone. Right. So beyond gifts and beyond tea and coffee, beyond code 1.06D, is there any other part of the code that you think is not necessarily appropriate or culturally appropriate for the UAE? What do you think, Amina?
Well, going through the BACB code, code 10.02 has to do with self-reporting to the BACB. And section B says that BCBA has to report any fines or tickets with their name on it. And at first I had a little panic because my mind went straight to speeding fines and parking tickets, which I'm sure for those of you who live or who have lived in the UAE, you must all be very, very familiar with. Like there are thousands of speeding radars across the UAE. And also, it's interesting, the speed limits actually change quite regularly. So I think that it's very likely that an otherwise very ethical BCBA could have fines and tickets. But luckily, we don't have to report those because the fines and tickets I think that we get in the UAE aren't actually under the individual's name. They go on the driving license or on the car registration number. That got me thinking about this code. And during the current COVID-19 crisis, there are actually public safety fines for breaking curfew and for violating social law. So, and these have the name of the individual on the ticket or on the fine. So, for example, if you go out to a public place, enclosed place, and you don't have a face mask on. But, here in the UAE, I don't know, what do you think, Dr. Michelle? I mean, how likely do you think it is that if a BCBA in the UAE were to receive such a fine that they would go back and report it to the BACB?
I mean, I'm going to take the deontological approach here and say if any board certificates here with us today do get a public health or safety related fine with your name on it, maybe you go outside without a mask or you stay out past our 10 p.m. curfew, it is your responsibility to report that to the BACB. Now, it would be interesting to see if the BACB get an influx of people self-reporting fines during COVID-19. But yeah, I'm not going to ask the attendees, would they report it? Because I'm not sure I want to see the answers. But yeah, that's a really great point, Amina. And I think we are lucky that in the UAE, the speeding tickets don't have names on it, because I think the BACB would be kept quite busy with a lot of self-reports. But I love that you related that to the COVID-19 pandemic. So thank you for that. That's awesome. So let's move on. And I've got a dilemma for everyone. And I'm going to just share a poll. Here we go. So let me just share this poll because I want to hear your thoughts on this, everyone. So let me share this poll now. So hopefully, if someone can just let me know if they can see that poll. I hope you can. So here's the dilemma. And this dilemma, let me say, it's adapted from this Bailey and Birch book. And I do love this Bailey and Birch book, which is analysing ethics questions from behaviour analysts. And what John Bailey and Mary Birch did here is they took 50 real life dilemmas that real life behavior analysts faced. They outlined the dilemma and then they basically gave their response. So it's a really useful workbook for all students and all behavior analysts in helping to determine how to deal with the dilemmas. So I see quite a few of you already answered the poll, but here's the question, or here's the scenario. You run a center that uses ABA-based intervention. You find out that one of your therapists, Sarah, who is an RBT, has a photo of a former student from the center on her phone. The student's mother sent the picture to Sarah and sends her lots of updates since the family moved from Abu Dhabi to Sharjah. So the question is, do you think that Sarah has violated the BACB's ethics code? So far, we've got a lot of answers coming through. We've got about half saying yes, half saying no, a few saying they're not sure. So let me, while you're thinking about it, attendees, let's hear from Aliazia. What do you think?
Yes.
Has she violated the code?
No, because because in the Professional and Ethical Compliance Code for Behavior Analysts, the subcode 2.06E, which is maintaining confidentiality, explains that the therapist should not share any private information that contains picture or video about current clients or supervising via social media. So the secret word here is the current client, and Sarah has a photo for a former client, not the current client. So, for example, in UAE, for my children who are in the nursery affiliated to the Ministry of Education, at the beginning of each semester, they gave me a confirmation paper and I have to sign it for whether I agree for the nursery to take photos for my children or not. And what is interesting, they make many exceptions. So they ask me if I agree for them to take photos for just keeping for the nursery, and also and if I want to share it, they want to share it via social media, or if I agree, they will put it in the wall for the nursery.
Yeah, that's great, Aliazia. And I agree. It's the most important point there was that the student was a former student, is not a current client, and thus there's no longer a potential multiple relationship. And it's funny that you're talking about schools and permission for photos, Aliazia. Just yesterday, actually, my son is starting school for the first time in fall, and just yesterday I got a survey from the school with this very thing that's on your screen, photograph permissions. And similar to what you were saying, Aliazia, my options were that I don't give permission at all for photos to be taken of my child, I give internal permission, or I give full permission. And what was interesting was that the logistics of it, because at the beginning of the survey, this particular school expressed that as they're deciding which students are put into which classes. So I guess logistically and ethically, it would be useful to have all the students that don't have permission to have their photos taken in one class, so that certainly the parents' wishes are adhered to and no photos are taken. So yeah, absolutely. So it's really important. So let me just close this poll to share with you what others thought. And I'm guessing that people were probably changing their mind as they were listening to you talk, Aliazia. But as you can see, I hope you can see the results. We had 27 people say, yes, she did violate the code. So now they've learned that, in fact, she didn't. 38 said no, and 6 said that they weren't sure. So thank you for that. So now let's move on to our 8th discussion. I'm just going to do a time check. We're doing okay. And I'm actually going to do another poll. So get your thinking caps ready again. So here's your poll, and your poll is, or your question is, have you ever seen a BCBA advertise a non-behavior analytic treatment? So have you personally ever seen a BCBA advertise that they are using non-behavior analytic treatments or FAD treatments? So in your experience, have you seen it? So let me now turn to the panelists, and maybe Amina, you can take this one. I mean, is it okay for BCBAs to advertise FAD treatments?
No, it is not okay for BCBAs to advertise FAD treatments. You know, this is a definite violation of the BACB's ethics code. The very first code, code 1.01, says behavior analysts rely on professionally derived knowledge based on science and behavior analysis. Then you go to code 2.09a, which highlights the client's right to effective treatment based on the research literature. Then you go to code 4.01, which says that behavior analysts design behavior change are conceptually consistent with behavior analytic principles. And then you go to code 8.01b, which is very, very clear by saying that behavior analysts do not implement non-behavior analytic interventions. So in this case, in this scenario, the BCBA is definitely in violation of the code and could possibly be sanctioned by the BACB with further consequences. Now, if the BCBA chooses to completely disregard the ethics code and still insists on implementing a FAD treatment or non-behavior analytic treatment, then they must do so outside the realm of behavior analytic service provision. So they have to very clearly highlight a disclaimer, and any promotion of this therapy has to be completely differentiated from their BCBA certification.
Great, thank you for that, Amina. So let's just look at our poll and look at the results. So let me share them with everyone. So we've had 3 of our attendees say that they, yes, often have seen a BCBA advertise FAD treatments or non-behavior analytic treatments. We have had 15 of you say that, yes, you have seen a BCBA advertise non-behavior analytic treatments once or twice. And good that we've seen 55 that have never seen it. But for those 18 of our attendees, Amina, what should they do? I mean, you mentioned sanctions and consequences. So let's say we do see a BCBA advertise a non-behavior analytic treatment. What should we do? What are we obliged to do? What is your suggestion?
Well, following the code 7.02, which is ethical violations by others and risk of harm, you could take the following steps. So there's 4 steps involved. Firstly, you have to figure out the type of violation. So is the BCBA's conduct illegal? So in this case, it's not. Or is it unethical? And in this case, it is. Secondly, you have to document your findings. So if it's, for example, an advertisement on a website, then you'd probably take a screenshot of the web page. Then you have to attempt an informal resolution. So you could try and contact the BCBA, you can send them an email and say, you know, by the way, you're promoting a non-behavior analytic intervention, and this is actually in violation of the BACB code. Now, lastly, if the matter is not resolved, so if the BCBA doesn't respond to you or if they refuse to change their mind, then it's your obligation to file a formal complaint to the BACB. And you can do so by submitting a notice of alleged violation, which can be found on the BACB website.
Perfect. Thank you so much for going through those so clearly, Amina. And just to follow up with that, if you are ever unsure about what to do in terms of if you're faced with an ethical dilemma, these are the best resources for you. As Amina just referred to, the BACB has a link to ethics and will bring you through step by step the process of reporting something or what to do, knowing what to do. And you may or may not be familiar, but ABAI also offers a hotline, which is just a fantastic resource. So I've given the link here, and again, I'll be sharing these slides. But if you go to the Association for Behaviour Analysis International website, on the top right, you'll see hotline. And if you click on that, and if you have an ethics concern, you put in your concern, and that gets sent straight to none other than John Bailey, who really is the world expert on ethics and behaviour analysis. Now, I've never had to do it myself, luckily, but I've been told from colleagues here in the UAE that they have submitted dilemmas to Dr. John Bailey, and he responds within 2 to 3 days. So it's not like you're waiting a very long time. So he does get back to you. And who knows, maybe your dilemma will will feature in a future edition of his book, and he might include in your scenarios in his book. I do recommend all the Bailey and Birch books as well for ethics. So it is 6:50, and we have come to the end of our discussion questions. So what I will say is, this is my email address if you have any questions. But before we go, I have a few things to say. Firstly, and Myra's just telling us there that Dr. Bailey actually has his own website and is the expert in giving advice. So yeah, I'll give that link as well for sure. I would like to thank all of our panelists. So from our Ajman campus, thank you so much to Amal, Aliazia, Mariam, and Fatima. I'm sure everyone's applauding from their chairs. You all did a wonderful job. And from our Abu Dhabi campus, thank you so much to Amina and Moza. The 6 of you, mashallah, you really did yourselves proud. You did me and Dr. Clodagh proud. You did ECAE proud, and most of all, you did yourselves proud. You really did. I think the audience will agree. You did a fantastic job outlining the approaches, the rights, the principles, giving us really great take-home guidelines and recommendations. Rakaya, the first Kuwaiti BCBA, said it is the best ethics webinar she has ever attended. I'm going to quote you on that, Rakaya. Lami is saying, very impressive students, mashallah. The compliments are streaming in here, which I will be sure to share with all of the panelists. So thank you so much. BCBAs, BACB certificates, don't forget to keep note of your verification codes. Panelists, let me open up to you. Does anyone have any final words that they wish to say?
I would like to say thank you, everybody, for joining us. It's our pleasure. It was an opportunity for us as well. As someone says, we are learning from teaching. So this is one of great opportunities that we had. So thank you all, and best of luck.
Great. Thank you so much, Mariam. Anyone else? Just to give you final words? I'll finish with Monica's comments that my students are fantastic. So thank you. I'm like a happy mama tonight. And one last thing before we all go, because we are approaching 7 o'clock. Just to tell you about our next webinar. So our next webinar is free again, the same platform. So this was our first. So well done to our brave students for participating tonight. Our second free webinar via the WebEx event platform will be presented by Dr. Clodagh Murray, who's an assistant professor at ECAE. We actually already have over 300 people registered for this workshop, but the more the merrier. So please, if you haven't done so already, please do sign up. Dr. Clodagh will be talking about play, which is a super important topic, especially now that we're restricted to home a lot more during COVID-19. So please be sure to sign up to those. And again, there will be 2 BACB learning CEUs offered for that workshop. So thank you all. Again, after this webinar, I will send you the slides. I will send you all those resources. Be sure to check out Rakaya's YouTube channel, which is all in Arabic. I will also send you the link to this workshop. You will also get a link to a survey. It will literally take you 4 or 5 minutes to fill out. Please, please, please do fill out that survey so that we can learn what we did well tonight, and more importantly, going forward, what we can improve upon so that we can make these webinars better and better. So thank you all so much. And again, for those BACB certificates, you will be getting a link where your certificate will be generated. Okay, if I didn't answer your questions, I apologize. Everything will be saved. So inshallah, afterwards in my email, I will address any questions that you may have asked that we didn't get around to answering. So I'll also answer those. So thank you all so much. Huge thanks to my students. Mashallah, Mabruk. I'm so proud of you all. You did a wonderful job. Thank you all for attending. Have a lovely evening. Thank you and good night.